This video is about absolute value equations and inequalities. First, let's do a really quick recap of absolute value. Absolute value, if you remember, is a number's distance away from zero. Right? It's super important for you to be thinking about distance away from zero in the problems that we're going to do. Okay? So quick recap, what's the absolute value of 6? Right? Well, here's 6, here's 0. What's the distance away from 0? This distance here is 6. So the absolute value of 6 is 6. Right? Similarly, the absolute value of -5. -5 is here, 0 is here. How far away is -5 away from 0? This distance here is 5. Right? The absolute value of -5 is 5, right? Because it's 5 spaces away from 0. Okay? Alright, so you really have to think about distance when you look at these equations. Alright, so we want to find and graph the solutions of this equation. The absolute value of x is equal to 4. The absolute value of x equals 4, right? Well, whatever x is, right, its absolute value is equal to 4. In other words, whatever x is, its distance away from 0 is 4. Right? Well, let's think about that. What numbers have a distance away from 0 of 4? Or better said, what numbers are 4 spaces away from 0? Well, one number that's 4 spaces away from 0 is obviously 4. Right? This is obviously 4 spaces away from 0. Right? But wait a minute, there's another solution. Another number that's 4 spaces away from 0 is -4. Right? This right here is also 4 spaces away from 0. Okay? So there are actually two solutions. One solution is -4. The other solution is 4. Those are the two numbers that have an absolute value equal to 4. The two numbers that are 4 spaces from 0. Right? So we would write our answer like this. X could either be equal to -4 or x could be equal to 4. Right? There's two numbers that will make this true. Alright, let's look at two other ones. Alright, we have an inequality now. The absolute value of x is greater than 7. Okay, so whatever number x is, its distance away from 0 needs to be bigger than 7. Alright, well, let's think about what numbers that could be. Right? Well, let's see. Let's first think about what numbers are 7 spaces away from 0. Well, that's going to be 7 and -7, right? 7's right here, -7 is right here. Those numbers are 7 spaces away from 0, right? 7 is 7 spaces away from 0. Right? But I don't want numbers that are 7 spaces away from 0. I want the distance away from 0 to be bigger than 7. Right? Well, if this distance is 7, and I want this distance to get bigger than 7, right, well, what numbers are more than 7 spaces away from 0? Well, that would be numbers like 8, 9, 10. All of these numbers over here, these numbers have a distance that's more than 7. Right? Well, that's not the only solutions. There's also solutions over here, right? Because the numbers over here, these numbers, like -8, -9, -10, those have a distance away from 0 that is bigger than 7. Right? So the numbers over in this region and over here, they have a distance away from 0 that's bigger than 7. They're farther than 7 spaces away from 0. Right? So our solutions are in this shape, right? And this is an OR statement. Okay, so the answer would be that x is less than -7 or x is greater than 7. Right? Our solutions are either on this side, over here, or they're over here. Right? Number 3, the absolute value of x is less than or equal to 8. Okay, so whatever x is, its distance away from 0 has to be smaller or equal to 8. Right? The distance away from 0 has to be smaller or equal to 8. Okay, well, where is the distance away from 0 equal to 8? Well, that's going to be at 8 and at -8. And actually, this is going to be, since we want the numbers that are less than or equal to 8, the distance to be less than or equal to 8, this is going to be a closed circle. Okay, so right there, those are the two spots at 8 and -8. Those are 8 spaces from 0. Okay, but now I don't want just the numbers that are 8 spaces away from 0. I want the numbers that are less than or equal to 8 spaces away from 0. Where are the numbers going to be have a distance that's less than 8? Well, as I get closer to 0, right, those numbers are less than 8 spaces away from 0. Right? So I'm going to shade these numbers. Right? And it's the same thing over here. Right? Numbers like -6, -4, these numbers are less than 8 spaces away from 0. Right? Again, the key is to think about this in terms of distance. Right? Whatever numbers we can use for x, those numbers, their distance has to be less than 8 spaces away from 0. Okay? They have to be less than or equal to 8 spaces away from 0. Okay? So here is our the graph of our solution, and this is an AND statement. Right? All right. So these numbers are, we can say that they're bigger or equal to -8, and they're also at the same time less than or equal to 8. Okay, but don't forget we want to rewrite this in our AND format that we talked about in our previous video, right? So x is less than or equal to 8. That's this side. I'm just going to bring that down. But this side, if x is greater than or equal to -8, well, that means that -8 is less than or equal to x. Okay, so this right here would be our answer. -8 is less than or equal to x, and x is less than or equal to 8. Okay, so let's see you try these two on your own. Okay, so find and graph the solutions of these statements. All right, go ahead and pause and see if you can figure these out. All right, here's the answers. For number 4, we want to find the numbers, right, whose absolute value is equal to 10. The numbers that are basically 10 spaces away from 0. Well, what numbers are exactly 10 spaces from 0? That would be 10 and also -10. Right? Those -10 is 10 spaces from 0, 10 is 10 spaces from 0. Okay, so the two answers would be x equals -10, or x could also be equal to 10. Alright, 5. Let's see if you got the answers to this one. Right? The absolute value of x has to be less than 4. Right? So I'm looking for the numbers whose distance away from 0 is less than 4. In other words, they are less than 4 spaces away from 0. Okay? Well, here's where the distance is exactly 4. But I don't want the distance to be exactly 4. I want the distance to be less than 4. Right? Well, actually, let me back up. There are 2 spaces. I should show 2 spaces. -4 is 4 spaces from 0, and 4 is 4 spaces from 0. Right? But I want the distance to be less than 4. Right? Right here, if I want the distance away from 0 to be less than 4 spaces, right? Well, that would be numbers like 3, 2, 1, 1.5. These numbers here, they are less than 4 spaces away from 0. Well, it's the same thing over here. Right? -3, -2, -1.5. Right? Those numbers are less than, right, 4 spaces away from 0. This is exactly 4 spaces, but I want the distance here to be less than 4. So that's here. All right, we have an AND statement. Okay. The numbers that are solutions are the numbers that are greater than -4 and also less than 4. Okay, but let's rewrite this. X in the middle, less than 4 on this side. And for the other side, if x is greater than -4, that means that -4 is less than x. Here's the answer. Alright, 2 more. Okay, so again, I'm going to have you pause and try these on your own. One quick tip. For number 6, if you have something like this, it says 3 is less than or equal to the absolute value of x. It'd probably be a good idea to think about another way to write that. Right? Well, if 3 is less than or equal to x, well, that's the same thing as saying the absolute value of x is greater than or equal to 3. Right? If 3 is less than or equal to x, if 3 is less than or equal to the absolute value of x, that means the absolute value of x is bigger or equal to 3. Okay, I've talked too much here. Pause, try these on your own, and then unpause to check your answer. Okay, let's see how you did. For 6, the absolute value of x is greater than or equal to 3. Right? So whatever x is, its distance away from 0 has to be more than or equal to 3. Right? Well, where is the distance equal to 3? Well, that would be here and here. Right? 3 is 3 spaces from 0. Negative 3 is also 3 spaces from 0. Okay? But I don't want just the numbers that have a distance that's equal to 3. I want to find numbers whose distance is bigger than 3. Right? In other words, I want to find numbers that are more than 3 spaces away from 0. 3 and more spaces away from 0. Right? So those would be numbers over here and over here. Right? Numbers like 4, 5, and 6, these are more than 3 spaces away from 0. Numbers like negative 4, negative 5, negative 6, these numbers are more than 3 spaces away from 0. Right? Your answer should be an OR statement. Your answer should be x is less than or equal to negative 3, or x is greater than or equal to positive 3. That's your answer to number 6. Okay, number 7. This one, we have the absolute value of x is equal to negative 6. Alright, so I'm looking for numbers whose distance away from 0 is equal to negative 6. Well, let's think about that. A distance is always going to be 0 or greater, right? It's always going to have a value that's either 0 or a positive number, right? You can never have a distance that's negative. Right? So this is impossible. You cannot find a number whose distance away from 0 is negative 6. This is impossible. So for this one, this is kind of a trick question here, but there are no solutions. Because again, it is impossible to find numbers that have a distance of negative 6 away from 0. Alright, one more that I want to show you, and this one we'll just do together. You can pause if you would like, but this one's also kind of an interesting one to think about. Right? I want the absolute value of x to be bigger than negative 4. I want to find the numbers whose distance away from 0 is more than negative 4. Right? Well, think about it. Absolute value, we've said, is it could be 0 or it could be a positive number, right? It can never be a negative number. So this number, right, its distance away from 0 has to be bigger than a negative number. Well, isn't this, right, always going to be bigger than a negative number? Right? No matter what I put in for x, it always is going to have a distance that is either 0 or a positive, right, away from 0. This is always going to be bigger than negative 4. Right? So no matter what number I put in, it will always be a solution. Right? So this is the case where x can be any real number. Right? And we're going to shade all of the real numbers. So the entire number line should be shaded.